Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Ottumwa, I would like to welcome you to the forum on the local option sales and services tax. Remember that we will vote on whether or not to continue this tax on September 10. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the presenters for coming this evening, and also thank the Ottumwa School District for allowing us the use of this space, and to thank the City of Ottumwa for helping us to promote the event. We will begin with each presenter making remarks and then open the floor up to audience questions. After questions, the two candidates for Ottumwa City Council, Cyan Bosu and Dan Reed, will each make a brief statement. So without further ado, we will begin remarks with Ryan Morgan, Wapello County Supervisor.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks everyone for showing up tonight. How many people live in rural Wapello County that's here tonight? For now, anyway, Gene.
Yeah.
So, for me, I'm speaking to you, and each one of us up here have a different municipality or group we're actually representing. I, as you said, represent Wapello County and rural areas of Wapello County. So, to start off, we decided not to change anything in our sales tax. It was created this way, I believe, in 2008. I'm sure there's someone here who probably correctly, but I believe it was put forth in about 2008. And it's really worked really well for the county and able to get a lot of projects done. So 50% of our local option tax dollars go to bridges and culverts. 25% goes to rural property tax relief, and the other 25% goes to a mix of economic development and capital improvement projects. On average, just shy of $900,000 a year goes into the fund that helps fund bridges and culverts to be maintained and updated throughout Wapello County. One thing that I think everyone that's a part of this is about the proudest of is there's things like the federal bridge swap program and other programs with it that we can apply grant-wise for bridges, say, over 20 feet in length. So then that becomes an 80-20 match, and able to use property tax dollars on those matches. So let's just imagine we have a bridge out there that's $1 million to replace or rebuild, and it's 25, 30 feet long. To be able to use those bridge swap dollars, we're maximizing the use of those property tax dollars by that bridge only costing $200,000, again, to be able to be used out of that fund. I originally had told them that I probably only need 3 or 4 minutes to go through this, but I was at a conference yesterday and today, so I had about 3 hours, 4 hours alone in the hotel room last night, so you guys are going to get the full effect. So, just kind of some facts. In Iowa, there's 4,567 efficient bridges statewide, bridges that's been labeled poor by the DOT. In Wapello County, there's 190 bridges. There's 36 of those bridges rated as poor. Now, every year that number fluctuates up or down with that. Now, so just imagine the fact that if we didn't have $900,000 a year and then adding that in with the grant dollars we're able to use, how quick those bridges labeled deficient or poor would start piling up. I really think you're going to be more than double the next 5 to 10 years. And that's not even getting into culverts. Culverts that wash out because of like the storms we had this year, the frost boils, the different things like that. That we're able to stay more on top of than if we didn't have those funds coming out of that. So a huge part of it, but I believe with everything, the number one concerns of people, not just Wapello County and Ottumwa, but everywhere, is always your roads and the safety of your bridges and other infrastructure you have in your community. So we definitely are happy that we put half of that money into that fund. The 25% goes into rural tax relief. When you hear tax relief, I believe the city's 20%, 30%, I won't still full surrender, but as we go into the tax relief of that, 25%, so roughly about $450,000 a year as we do our rural budget. Now, your rural budget is limited to what you could actually tax for on those things. A lot of that goes in, again, to your secondary roads fund, your sheriff deputies, their benefits, things along those lines. So to be able to put forth a budget in your rural levy, and then to take $450,000 right off the top of that, is how you see that value savings to the taxpayer of Wapello County. The levy for the rural tax is capped at $3.95, and we won't get into House File 718 or any of that fun stuff with it, but right now, Wapello County's rural tax levy sits at $2.95. We're $1 below the max levy that we could be at. So I think that that's not, responsible stewardship of people's money, but we're able to do that with the help of these tax dollars to do it. The state average on the rural levy is right around $3.23. A lot of areas, a lot of counties down in our area are at that distress level. So they are maxed out at their $3.95 levy. So again, I hate to say the proof's in the pudding with this, but the numbers I think speak for themselves. The money that we're able to take out of local option tax and put in to help save people's property tax dollars. The next thing is the mix of capital improvements and economic development. Your capital projects, we all own homes or we have businesses or different things, it never fails. You feel like you're getting a little ahead and there's a leak in the roof or the air conditioning unit goes down. This has been an absolute savior for Wapello County for capital projects. Just this summer, we had an air unit go down at the Law Center. Now, I know what a lot of you might think, hey, they're in there for a reason. They get a little hot, who cares? Funny, the state cares. So there is such a thing as cruel and inhumane punishment. You start getting a little hot in your jail, the lawyers start getting a little iffy with things and they start scratching around. So with that, we were able to replace that unit this year, a $30,000 expenditure that was not budgeted for. Elevators at the courthouse, elevator at the Law Center, both of those, again, big things that we knew it was, but not something that we had to put in property tax dollars to spend on that. We had an issue a few years ago with the fire escapes at the courthouse. The courthouse is an old building. Sorry, the courthouse is a historic building. So, there's a lot of little things, and keeping a building like that up. So we had an issue with fire escapes. So what do we do with those? Well, we ended up taking them down. In order to do that, we had to redo practically the whole fire sprinkler system in there, the fire alarms. Make sure that the doors were adequate for fire safety, items like that. And again, we were able to use that money out of local option sales tax. So the property taxpayer of Wapello County didn't see that on their tax bill by raising the levy or by having to cut a valuable service that we are already hanging on to by a hair right now. The economic development side of things, it's given us the ability to, as Ragbri came through this year, to put $25,000 into that fund to help make Wapello County again the best stop on Ragbri when it came through. So something we all should be proud of is the way we showed up for that. And the $25,000 helped with signage, helped get things ready. Also gave money to cities like Elton and Agency out of that to help with signage and porta potties, whatever they needed to welcome 15,000 plus riders into our area. Things like the Babe Ruth World Series that came through a few years ago, things that bring people into our community that we can showcase where they spend money and those property tax dollars continue to grow. That's those investments that we're able to put in. Different economic development incentives. We currently only put about $10,000 in to go ahead for economic development. things, but it's something that we've always been open to, with folks like Mark or Sharon or whoever's been in the league. That you see something that comes out of the study, the sports facility, local option sales tax paid for that study that's helped lead to that in our community. And again, something that I feel is going to exponentially grow sales tax dollars in the community. A little partial to that. Spend a little time on that. Tied in with all that, I think that it's very important with it because capital projects also, to me, lead to such a quality of life things. The Naval Air Station Museum. Over the years, we've been able to give money for windows and cupola and drywall, different projects for that building. Things that help us keep the history of Wapello County and Ottumwa alive. That without the support of that, the support of local option sales tax dollars, we're not able to give that. And frankly, I think Steve and Larry and those guys out there will tell you, without that, they're probably not even close to where they're at today. And again, I think that's something once they get up and going, they had a great fly-in here a while back and a car show and stuff. Those are going to be some things that again help spur people coming from outside of Wapello County to spend money in our community and grow these funds. The Wabash Walk Bridge. I think anyone can agree, you're not going to guess this, I'm not a walker, but I think one of the best things that's been done in Ottumwa, Wapello County in the last 30 plus years for quality of life has been our trail system. And I wasn't around when the Wabash Walk Bridge was constructed, but I believe that it came with a cost, if it was to be torn down, well over $1 million, maybe $2 million. Again, I wasn't here with that, but it was a substantial. And with DNR and EPA, you don't just blow a bridge up and let it flow down the river. So for them to transform a historical, to me, another historical landmark in our community into a vital piece of our trail system. Well, a couple years ago, through accident, through arson, whatever you want to say it was, the bridge was set on fire, the bridge caught fire. It was costing about $430,000, I should wish it was $430,000 to get that fixed. Now, you may say, well, that's a lot of money with it, but look at the number of people who travel that bridge every day, not just for recreation, but to get from one side of town to the other, ride their bikes, whatever it may be. So we invested just in the last 2 years that $430,000 into not just fixing the Wabash Bridge, but making it better and making it more indestructible today than what it was when it was first created. And then with the help of the Trails Council, putting the redecking on and getting some fencing fixed, and we got some other plans for it. But some of those quality of life issues that yes, it fits into an economic development, it fits into a capital project with things, but those are good quality projects that, frankly, that bridge right now would still be sitting burned out, or we'd be looking for another way to get it torn down or do something with it if it wasn't for that. Yearly average dollars, you're about $860,000 for bridges and culverts, $430,000 for property tax relief, $430,000 for economic development capital improvement. These numbers are all over the board, and I think you're probably going to see some different ones. Studies I looked at and seen conservative numbers, you're looking over a third of that money from coming outside of the county. And whether we want to believe it, whether we want to continue to believe it or not, Ottumwa still is a hub in our area.
That's right.
And when you have a Menard set here the way you do, the value in that alone, and the people that come into our community, we hear through the housing studies and the things like that, the number of people that come to Wapello County, work, and then leave. Guess what, folks? They're going to the store before they leave. They're buying things at our stores. They're probably getting gas here. They're doing different things while they're in town. And going to Bloomfield or Jefferson County or wherever it may be. So the value of those outside dollars helping to fund these projects are tremendous. Real quick, she's gonna start throwing things at me here, and seeing the way she gets me, backs against the wall and time's short. But what do we do if we don't have this? I don't know, but it's not good. And when I talk about rural property tax dollars and things like the sheriff deputies being funded out of that, up against House File 718, where if our valuation goes up too much, we're not able to grow that. Right now, folks, when we start cutting things, those things are people. And I don't want to cut people. I want to keep Wapello County going forward. Local option sales tax has been a blessing, not just for Wapello County, but the city and the other incorporated towns around Wapello County. And I hope everyone gets out, supports it September the 10th. And let's keep Wapello County moving forward with the help of these tax dollars.
Okay, we're now going to hear from Cole O'Donnell, Director of Finance, City of Ottumwa.
All right. Hopefully the microphone is only here so that he can get it on recording. Because I usually talk about I come from a very large family, and when we get together, they usually can hear us halfway across town. So I'm representing the city tonight. I am the finance director for the city of Ottumwa, but I have had the bulk of my experience has been in Iowa. In fact, I started my career about the time the local option sales tax was authorized by the state legislature. So I know some things about it, how it started, and why it started. And I do want to say one thing real quick off of Brian's presentation is that the way that the sales tax is distributed is not just all the dollars that are generated in Ottumwa go to Ottumwa. The dollars that are generated here are split throughout the county based upon a formula. If it's not for that formula, the unincorporated areas would not get very much sales tax. There's not a lot of businesses that are in the county to collect that tax. So it's important for people to understand that if Wapello County wants to continue getting their dollars, or Eldon wants to keep getting their dollars, it has to pass in Ottumwa as well, because we are the economic engine of the county. So again, why I'm here today, the local option sales tax for us is set to expire December 31st, 2025, and we're going to have a special election on September 10th. Is to continue the tax. This is not a new tax. Brian said it started in 2008. That's probably when the city started as well. When it was originally instituted, it went to pay off the debt of the Bridgeview Center. And then in 2016, that is when it was renewed for another 10 years with the current allocation of 10% going to property tax relief and 90% going to street and sewer projects. What we would like to do is change that allocation to 30% property tax relief and 70% to streets and sewers. And I'll get into that a little bit further in the presentation. So it is an optional 1% sales tax. There are 900-some communities in the state of Iowa. Only 17 do not collect the local option sales tax, and the majority of those are in Polk County. Polk County has tried to pass local option sales tax several times, and because of the way it's set up for that initial election, it keeps failing. It'll pass in one community, but if you don't have a majority throughout the entire county on that first vote, it doesn't pass. So Ryan touched upon the fact that he said 30% came from outside the county. Well, 60% of the sales tax created in Ottumwa comes from outside of the Ottumwa city limits. So we're capturing not only that 30% that live outside the county, but we're capturing those rural residents or residents in other communities that shop here. And it helps contribute not only to us, but to those communities as well. And again, the vote is by jurisdiction. So the county is going to have a separate ballot. Eldon will have a separate ballot. We'll have a separate ballot. It's not county-wide. Past 51% in the entire county. It's by each jurisdiction. Okay, so how does local option sales tax benefit the city? Well, the 1% is returned to the jurisdictions based upon the formula. And the use of funds is outlined by a locally adopted revenue purpose statement. So again, right now we're 10%, property tax relief, 9% streets and sewers. What I can tell you is that what it benefits for us, it allows us to maintain services. It also allows us to do the capital projects in the streets and sewers. What I can tell you is that in this past year, just for the streets alone, because I'm working on a report today, that just for the streets alone, we transferred over $2 million to our streets projects in fiscal year 24. Why is the additional amount needed in the general fund? Well, Ryan had mentioned House File 718. What 718 does is it says that you have all these different levies that you can levy for property tax, but we're going to take those and we're going to crunch them all down into what our cap is, that 810 limit. Ryan's was $3.20.
Rural levies, $3.95.
$3.95. Yeah, $3.95, right? Ours is capped at $810, but we have additional levies. The legislature came in and said, some of these additional levies, we're not going to let you have anymore. Well, we had 3 of those. We had the emergency levy, which if you're at the 810, which we are, you can levy for that for an additional 27 cents. That goes away. We had 13 cents per thousand that was allocated to the Bridgeview Center. That goes away. The one that really sticks in my craw a little bit is that the people of Ottumwa voted a 27-cent levy upon themselves to support the library. And the legislature said, we're going to get rid of that. So we're losing then 67 cents? 67.5 cents of our levy. So we have to get that down to an 810 limit by 2020, 2026, 2028, 29. Yeah, 29. So what you'll see is the solvent levy, how we have to contract it, with the green and the blue being those levies that we used to be able to levy for being squeezed out. And then you'll see that our blue lines on the tax levy trend, that would be what it would be if we didn't have to contract. We are trying to keep that at that same level right there by managing our debt and managing our other levies. The state says, no, you're going to be at that 810. So the question is for the city, because it's easy for the county to show you how it keeps the property tax down for the rural levy. It's not the same case with the city. It is not a direct reduction of your property tax asking or levy rate. I'll be honest with you, it's just not that. It doesn't work that way anymore since they instituted it. But the additional that we're asking for is being used to replace the levies eliminated by the state. And it does provide necessary revenues to maintain our services. Just so you know, that we're not the only city that uses it for property tax relief and can still use more, and it doesn't actually lower your property tax. Back in the 90s, like I said, I was around when this was instituted. Governor Branstad, in his first set of terms, was asked how local governments were going to meet expenditures given the other constraints the state had placed on property tax growth. His response was, that's why we gave them the local option sales tax. So even by the governor's standard, it was not necessary that you were going to lower somebody's property tax. It was going to make up for the fact that the state was constraining our revenues. But there is the ability for us to not have to raise property taxes when we want to do projects for streets and sewers. We can use the local option sales tax to pay the bonds that would otherwise go on property tax. So what is in the general fund? Well, the general fund includes a lot of services. Police, dispatch, animal control, fire and emergency management, levy maintenance. In public works, it's parking enforcement, engineering, refuse collection. In health and social services, it is building and code enforcement, health department, and many cleanups that we have been and are doing in our city. In agricultural and recreation, it's the municipal band, it's parks, it's the cemetery. Well, no, cemetery is another fund, I'm sorry. I had a cemetery in all my, in the general fund and other places, but it's another one. But it's municipal parks, man. It's our administration. It's all of those things necessary in order to run the city and to provide services. And all that's going to be rolled into that 810, and we're going to have to make up some of that money to be given to the library so they can continue to operate and to help the Bridgeview Center operate. But how are the funds allocated in the general fund? So you ought to know where the money's going, right? So what you'll see here is that the vast majority of the money that goes into the general fund is being spent on personnel, over 68% of the general fund. And that's just for the and that's part of the operational, not the total budget. Because under the total budget, we also have capital expenditures or one-time expenditures, and we have transfers out. And those transfers out are mainly those monies to support the Bridgeview Center and the library. And that amount is going to have to increase in order to maintain their services. So how does the new split affect projects? Because we've heard, oh, it's going to slow down the streets repairs, it's going to slow down the sewer repairs. And that's not necessarily the case. These the projects can be financed in different ways. You can issue debt and then use the local option sales tax to pay the bonds. At Tuesday night's meeting, the city council initiated the steps to borrow $16 million for the sewer separation project. The local option sales tax is going to pay the money back. If we manage the money correctly, we can do this with streets as well. So it does not necessarily mean that projects are going to be delayed or slowed down. We just have to plan for it, prepare for it, and manage our money correctly. So this is the sample ballot that you see for Ottumwa residents when you walk in. Shall the following measure be adopted, yes or no? And then it's the measure. A local sales and service tax shall be imposed in the city of Ottumwa, Iowa at the rate of 1% to be effective January 1, 2026 until December 31st, 2035. Revenues from the sales and service tax will be allocated as follows. 30% for property tax relief, 70% for streets and or sewer improvements. Now one of the questions out there is, if the current tax does not expire until December 31st of 2025, why are we asking residents to approve it now? To give us time that in case something doesn't pass, that we can come up with either another solution or figure out why it didn't pass and address that so that we can continue the sales tax in some fashion. Because there are too many people, too many services, too many communities that depend upon it. So we're being diligent. So what does a yes vote mean? Unless there's a change in the law, because the legislature has talked about some things, but I won't go into that. LOSST continues for another 10 years. Sales tax remains the same, 7% of purchases in the jurisdiction, and it's not a new fee. And it applies, that 1% applies to everything that the state already taxes with their 5%, and the school taxes with their 1% that is statewide. The city will continue to receive revenue, which we currently estimate at $4.5 million. The split would change, so 30% would go to property tax relief and 70% to streets and sewers. This would bring in $900,000 to help cover the eliminated levies. So that's the additional that would go to the general fund. If the LOSST passes, expenditure reductions within the general fund will still be needed. Our expenses are outpacing our revenues. We still have to look at what we need to do in order to get our expenses in line with the resources we have. What this does with the local option sales tax is it gives us a little bit of a cushion and a little more time to figure things out. But at some point, we are going to have serious discussions on how to reduce expenditures in different areas. A change in allocations for the streets and sewers, again, does not mean that projects will be delayed because they have other ways to finance them, and the loss can be used to pay bonds for streets and sewer projects. What does it mean if there's no vote? Well, unless there's another vote, which again, this is why we're giving ourselves time, the local option sales tax will end on December 31st, 2025. Sales tax reduced to the state level of 6% for purchases within the jurisdiction, and the estimated loss of revenue to the city alone, not everybody else, $4.1 million, $4.5 million. We still have to do our projects. We still have to provide our services. So the city would need to consider increasing the only one other revenue source that the city says that, or the state says we can use, is the franchise fee. And we don't want to do that because that is a direct impact upon our citizens. We like to use that only as a very, very last resort. It could mean reduction in services. It can also mean that projects would then have to be delayed because we do not have the funds to do it, or we're going to need to raise sewer rates and property tax for debt service. Did 15 minutes.
We will now hear from Stacy Doré, Eldon City Council.
You're not going to hear much from me. These guys have covered everything. Basically, we're a very small town, and we rely on this pretty heavily to make sure we have our fire department and our public library, the police protection, cemetery, same things that everyone else uses. So it's very important to us. And I just found out I was going to do this too. But really, they touched on everything I think we could say. If you have any questions, Cal will answer them, but that's all I have.
Can you know, and this isn't a direct toward Elton, but you know, so many of the little incorporated towns that do get part of the formula that Cole talked about. Here a few years ago, the city of Blacksburg was, all intents and purposes, broke. They were really struggling with things. Their streets, disrepair, what were they going to do? They ended up getting signatures around the town and reallocated, revoted on their local option sales tax at that time. No sunset on it, and all that money then went into property tax relief, which then funded all the road projects. It helped get, because otherwise right now, and Jason Leffler was mayor at that time, and if you have questions, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. But he was very, very major in getting that done. Right now, the city streets in Blacksburg, most of them would probably be gravel if it wasn't for the local option tax. And, you know, towns like Elton with the Gothic House and, you know, some of the other businesses there and things like that, you know, do bring a lot in, thousands of visitors a year into that area. So just a little bit of a similar town in Wapello County and how much that local option tax really means to these little areas. It may only be $12,000, $15,000, whatever, you know, that is. But, and I think the city of Chillicothe, with Tim not being there, I think they use theirs to keep their street lights on. So a lot of value in it, a lot of different areas.
So we'll now open up the floor to questions. So if you have a question, if you would just like to come up to this mic and present your question.
there we go. I'm Mary Gaskell. You may know that I'm a former representative. And also, my question is, how does online purchases affect the local option sales tax?
I like these. I like these questions. So I'm gonna tell you, we were really worried, going through COVID, and I see Jerry back here coming up. You know, a lot of things were shut down. There's a lot of people were going Amazon, going online with things. And the legislature passed, maybe in 2019, around that time, that online purchases would be taxed. So, Cole can definitely add to this, but we do, the online purchases does help in that formula for that. So we didn't see the reduction in the local option tax in 2020, after 2020, like we were really fearful. In fact, and again, Jerry can double check it and pull those numbers, but I think it actually went up, instead of going down.
So, the reason why the legislature passed that law was that there was a court case that ruled that these online companies had to collect the sales tax for the jurisdiction where the delivery was being made, just like local option sales taxes. And yes, you did see a spike up in the collections for local option sales tax.
Good question. Thank you.
This might be a few. I forgot how to do all this stuff. I want to thank Mr. O'Connell for clarifying that this is not a direct reduction in property taxes. Now, it could have been. If you listen to what Brian said that the way it's figured is 25%. When I worked out the deal with the Farm Bureau, 25% goes to property tax relief. Direct, absolute property tax relief. How do you do that? You figure out what your rural property taxes are, and you figure out the $400,000 you're going to get from the sales tax. You subtract that from the tax bill, and the citizens get a direct property tax relief. Couldn't the city have done the same thing instead of just putting it in the general fund?
Certainly, they very well could. The problem is that because the other revenue sources within this, that feed the general fund, are not keeping up with the pace of expenses. Quite simply, when you have growth in valuations of less than 2%, but you have increases in expenditures of 2.5% to 3%, it becomes a situation where you can continue reducing the amount you're asking in property tax, but you're going to have to then reduce services.
You know what we do at home? We cut.
Yes, sir.
We cut.
But I don't think you're comparing apples to oranges with all due respect.
And back here, we're not going to relate, it says there will be a direct reduction over the next 3 years in the property tax levy. That's got nothing to do with the sales tax.
No, it doesn't, but
It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, but it is related in the fact that that's the reason why we're requesting the change in the allocation is because we are being forced to reduce our property tax levy, and we're going to lose, in today's dollars, $450,000, and no opportunity for growth.
But if you don't get a positive vote on the sales tax, if it fails, that does not mean that you're going to increase property taxes.
It does not.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I don't know where your special What?
It's already on, right?
Okay, thank you. Keith Gavin, I'm a member of the Talbot City Council. And I would ask Mr. O'Donnell, I'm not trying to corner you, I'm just asking a question. I ran on the proposition of fixing streets in the Talbot. I've not gotten very much cooperation from the council or the city in accomplishing that. And so I would just ask you this, if you believe that the streets are in pretty good condition, that would be the only real justification for reducing the monies from the loss tax. And I don't believe that's the case. Would you agree?
That's a loaded question, sir, because the condition of the streets is not, they're not perfect. But I can tell you that in the vast majority of cities across the state of Iowa, they're facing the same struggle. But I want to say this, is that we are currently developing a capital improvement plan whereby we can plan out street repairs, because before I got here, there has not been that capital improvement plan, and street repair has been haphazard. What I want to do with the capital improvement plan is to set forth that streets, each year, certain number of miles of street, or certain number of blocks of streets, certain amounts of streets will be repaired in one way or another, whether it's a seal coat, a mill overlay, or a full reconstruction.
Well, I would like to reiterate your comment, the streets are not perfect. They are a long ways from perfect. And the citizens of this community feel like they deserve better street service. And we can't compare ourselves to somebody else's streets. All we can compare ourselves to is our streets. So I was one member of the council that did not vote to change this to a 70-90 program, or, 70-30 program. I did not vote in favor of it, so I'm still not in favor of it. I do understand the city has to keep up with their expenses. I also know that they have to learn to cut. Stop spending is the only way that you can keep up with your expenses. So those are my comments. I didn't mean to corner you. I'm not cornering you. I just want the public to know that there are other ways of doing things, and we're not going to get our streets fixed cutting finances. Thank you.
Is there another question? Can I?
Any other questions, or?
Just a comment regarding the cities, where the city's at with it, and maybe kind of how we got there today. I was on city council when we instituted the 90-10. At that time, one of the biggest issues in the city of Ottumwa was the sewer rates skyrocketing. I mean, you want to talk, and it's still on your bill. You can look at it and see. The sewer rates were far outpacing any water usage, anything like that. And it was really starting to devastate the common blue-collar working person around town. And that's why we did the 90%. One of the things I say I'm proud of is we haven't seen those sewer rates go up in that time. Also, so many years ago, the consent decree was signed, the sewer separation would continue. I don't know the years on that, if it's 10 years left, whatever it is with that. So that is definitely things that has to be done. Legally binding with that, I think that's important with it. I do not disagree with Councilman Cavanis as well on that, but in saying that, I think that 70% is going to be absolutely vital to continuing the sewer projects and updating the streets. And one thing, just for point of education, we did have a capital improvement project. We funded for it every 2 to 3 years. The problem became that a lot of other fingers got in the pie with that. So I would love to see that go back to a capital improvement project and just focus on the streets. I'll echo every bit of that. I think first and foremost, we got to get the local option tax to help complete the sewer repairs that we signed this consent decree on, and help move the streets forward whatever little bit we can.
I think you touched on it just a little bit, but maybe Cole or Brian, with the split, whether it's your 50-25-25 or the 10-30-90, 70-30, how does that work as far as shifting funds between those, and would you be able to do that? So if the city were to adopt 70-30, would you be able to take any of that 30% and move it back to streets and sewers, or looking at other options for funding some street and sewer projects? And if it did not pass and went back to 90-10, and you're looking at cutting services in the city, could you take some of the 90 and move it to the 10 at that point?
So, because the 10% property tax relief goes into the general fund has a little more leeway on how things can be spent and moved between the different funds. So, if we did not need all of the 30%, should the ballot pass, then we could always shift some of that back to a street or sewer project until it's needed back in the general fund. If we're at it does not work the opposite way. So if it doesn't pass and we stay at the 90-10, we cannot take any of the 90% to help support the general fund, because that is specific to streets and sewer projects. The amount of property tax relief, we have a little bit more flexibility that we can move it into those projects, but we cannot do it the other way.
And I think we're at a time of social media and misinformation, and why are you fixing this Wabash Bridge when the streets are falling apart, or why are you doing this? Money is earmarked the way that it has to be earmarked in accounts like these, and that's the great thing. And Cole touched on maybe the state doing some things next year. Me personally, I hope if they do their changes, it still would be passed by ordinance that every city or county has to state what this money is going for and be held to that standard, because otherwise you're going to see a lot of sales tax dollars going to general funds, and none of this stuff's getting done. So I think it's just making sure that the dollars are accounted for with it. But this is an opportunity for citizens to see in black and white where $4.5 million is going, or where $1.6 million is going, and that's where that money has to be spent. And those auditors, they're not into jokes and fun like we are.
I'm Brian Ziegler, Walpole County Supervisor. I serve with Brian Morgan and Darren Batson. And I just want you to know that once in a while I disagree with Brian Morgan. However, on this issue, Darren Batson and I and Brian Morgan have agreed completely on what was done, what we proposed to do. So I think that's neat that we're doing this for the community. And one thing to double check, I looked at the website, Iowa Department of website. I believe that this is not applying to any groceries purchased, does not apply to any gas you purchase, and it does not apply to any vehicles you purchase. Those are exempt from sales tax, therefore they're exempt from local option tax. So really that's a big amount of money to look at what your budget is that you're spending on those things. So, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
And Brian, you could disagree, nobody's perfect.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice? I actually have a question. I know, Stacy, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you didn't speak very much, so I was just wondering if you wanted to add anything about what Eldon spends the money on, or any critical items for Eldon?
It's the same as everyone's spending money. We've been able to lay asphalt on one street just about every year. We've got some nice streets now. It's all used, like I said, it's just, we have a small town that we're not gonna make it without this. And I think ours is $117,000 is what Eldon is. So, we use them very wisely.
Okay, great. All right, and then one last question for you all. You know, and I know that getting into the House File 718 is a little complicated, but is there anything that we as citizens can do to encourage the state of Iowa to help fund our local communities a little better?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is engage with your local officials. Learn about your budget. It's not the city's budget, it's not the county's budget, it's your budget. Learn about it, learn what goes into it, learn where the money's going. I put up a couple of graphs here. Phil did one, I did two of them, I did one of them. Either one of us will gladly sit down with anybody on any topic, right? But engage with your local officials, your elected officials, your appointed officials. Learn what's going on. Become involved. Come to a council meeting, not to complain, not to voice an opinion or either for or against or anything like that. To come to a meeting just to know what's going on. If you can't make it to a meeting, they're on YouTube, they're on Facebook, right? Watch them, understand them, ask for the council packet. If afterwards you have questions, you have opinions, you have something you want to say, email, telephone, become involved, engage your local officials.
Oh, you have to sit back down, it's my turn. You know, on the county level of it, I'm gonna do something really stupid, and I'm gonna somewhat defend the bill. There was 31 counties, something like that in the state, that was over the $3.50 levy. Wapello County never got over that levy. That was the max, same as the city was 810. The city can't go over that 810 levy. It blew my mind when I found out all these counties was over the 350 levy. And I'll tell you, it was a disadvantage for Wapello County, because what happened was a lot of employees was looking at salaries in Appaloosa or Decatur or here, or wherever it may be. Well, how are they doing? Well, let me tell you how they're doing. Their citizens are being taxed, and the law says you can't go over the 350 levy. Where I think they went too far, and this happens a lot, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. So there were 64 counties or 66 counties, whatever it was at that $3.50 levy. For them to continue to cut those counties was not right. Our rural levy, as I talked about, we're at 301, 94 cents below what we could have been. We was not maxed, and trust me, we could have been. I mean, and again, I credit people before me, I credit us now. We have adhered to that, and that's what the law is with that. So for us to then be continually cut on that I don't feel is right. The spirit of the bill and what they were trying to get at, I do understand that. So, I've spoken with Representative Wills numerous times, we sat down with him. I think he understands that with us, and I do think those counties probably need to be held accountable for what they've done. Just leave us alone and let us continue to do what we were doing, because I think we were doing budgetarily okay with it.
All right, so if there's no more questions, we are going to have some brief statements by our two candidates running for city council, Cyan Mosu and Dan Reed. So if Cyan and Dan would like to come up to the front. Thank you very much.
And each of you will get 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you're.
Okay, we're just gonna go alphabetical, so we'll have Cyan go first.
Am I on?
Don't press the button, there you go.
No, I'm not. Okay. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. And for those who are going to listen later, it takes a lot to become an educated voter. So truly thank you for your time and the effort that you're putting into your vote. As she said, I'm Cyan Bosu. I am currently sitting on the city council. I was appointed in January of this year to fulfill a seat that someone had resigned from. Just a little bit about myself. I was born and raised here in Ottumwa, Iowa. I'm raising my small family in Ottumwa, Iowa as well. When I was 18 years old, I bought into a nail salon business here in town. I am a co-owner of that, and so I have a vested interest in our economy here. I was previously an educator for the Ottumwa School District, and now I work at Ottumwa Job Corps, which is fairly new, but I'm enjoying my time there. During the time that I have been on council, I would like to think that I have contributed to a lot of those things that I said I would do. One of my platform items was housing development, and if you have watched our city council meeting this last Tuesday, we are almost halfway to completing our goal in our plan to create more affordable housing and market rate housing that the community has requested from us. And I have contributed to that, and so that's something I am proud to say. I've also made efforts towards economic development. At this last council meeting as well, we voted for a sprinkler item that is going to help our downtown district and many other economic districts in our community continue to grow. And I hope to continue to find more ways to grow our economy and help kind of solve some of the issues that we're all here tonight to learn about. Something that I have mentioned in any interview that I've been doing since we've been interviewed a lot lately in this last month is the work that we do on our boards and commissions. You know, we have a lot of decisions that we make on our city council agendas and our board of health agendas and our solid waste agendas, but a lot of the work that we do on council is the nitty-gritty stuff in our boards and commissions. And I actually see a few of our board and commission members in our audience today, so thank you for being here and continuing to put effort into our city. I'm on two boards and commissions. One is the Human Rights Commission and the other is the Historic Preservation Commission. I requested to be on those, we got a choice, and both of these are areas in our community that are near and dear to my heart. And so we are making lots of progress in those commissions, and it's not really in due part to me. I help in every way that I can, but the commission members are passionate about what they do, and I always encourage people to find an empty slot and get involved with the community and do something. Moving forward on from today and until the end of December and hopefully until January of 26, I hope to continue to help grow the economy in our community, to find creative ways to build up our revenue as well as finding some more uncomfortable ways to cut some of those expenditures as well. I hope that what people take away from me is that I genuinely love my community. You know, I know I'm young, I'm 24, I'm the youngest council person that Ottumwa has had, but I have shown my work, I have shown my efforts. I'm passionate about helping our community. I'm raising my family here, and I want to be able to say I'm proud to raise my family in Ottumwa, and I want other young people to say they're proud to raise their families here too. So I hope that my passion for Ottumwa is evident when you go to the polls on September 10th. And I know we can't answer questions up here tonight. I was really prepared to answer some questions. So if you feel the need, stop me after this. I'd love to talk with you and get to know you and answer any questions that you might have. So again, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for educating yourself, and I'll see you at the polls on September 10th.
Okay, Dan Reed.
Thank you, Cyan. I think she has amazing poise and presence for her age. I don't think at 24 I would have had that. Some things that, three things that I want to focus on, and I realize I'm coming into this ring. I've never served on the council, of course, so I have a lot of to learn. There's a lot of things I'm not versed in. But I do want to focus on our fiscal responsibility. That's important, and I appreciate what was mentioned tonight, and I realize it takes a balance of things. There's no easy answers. If it was easy, it already was solved, taken care of. It takes work, I understand that. We do want to improve our streets and infrastructure. That's so important. You know, if you own a home, if you own a property, it's constant work, constant investment of money. What are you going to spend on? What are you going to do to make things work out? So I understand that takes a balance. And again, it takes a lot of work to figure that out. It's not necessarily easy answers. Public safety and security in our neighborhoods, quality of life things. I appreciated some of the things that were mentioned about the trail system and many of the good things we have here in Tacoma. And I'd like to emphasize those quality things. I've been back in Tacoma now for 32 years. And so I consider Tacoma my hometown. I wasn't born here, but we moved away in 1973, so if you remember John Burrell closed down. My dad took a transfer to work in the Sioux Falls plant. We lived in Brandon, which was a suburb of Sioux Falls. But since then going off to college and working in Quincy, Illinois, actually for 10 years teaching school, and then back here since '92. So I enjoy Tacoma, and one of the things that I'm concerned about, one of the things I noticed when I first came back to town, was there were people who, just use an example, somebody that I knew, an older person, needed to get to their doctor. I said, no problem, I'll help you get to your doctor. Where are we going? And they said, Bloomfield. I said, why are we going to Bloomfield? And my thing is I want Atomans to appreciate Atoma and use Atoma. I like Atoma. I've had 3 surgeries at Atoma Hospital. They've all gone as good as they could go, I think. They forgot to put the bionics in with the replacement hip, but that's the only problem. They did a perfect job, everything went fine. And I like the idea of, we talk about the local option sales and service tax. More money comes here when we buy here, when we work here. So I appreciate the emphasis on that, the work on that all you people have done. I want Tacoma to be strengthened to the point where our children, our grandchildren, don't feel like they've got to go someplace else to find a quality job and be able to follow the American dream. I want them to be able to be right here and feel they can find that here. So again, it's easy to throw those things out, and I realize it's line upon line, precept. It takes time to build that up. It doesn't just happen. But I believe that Atoma, from 1973 when Burrell's closed, Atoma was going through terrible. I'm sure it was a terrible time. Obviously, we were leaving, sold a 36-acre farm out in the country for $28,000, and we were gone. You know, property values were down, things were tough, but the key is Atoma came through that, and I believe Atoma is doing good these days, and I enjoy being in Atoma. I appreciate what we have and the options we have here. And so I do look to be a conservative voice on the council. I believe the things that have helped America be great down through the years will help us. We do need to be people that live by principles of hard work and taking care of ourselves, fiscal responsibility, like we said, being people that take personal responsibility. Listen, Atoma is our Atoma. Nobody's going to fix it but us. Nobody's going to help us. And maybe this fly might help us here. Nobody's going to help Atoma be good except us. We've got to be the one that works on it. And so I don't know what you think about this illustration. Atoma is our Garden of Eden. This is where God's put us. And God said to those in the garden, he said, I want you to dress it, care for it, gave them work to do, but they need to take care of it. Now, Atoma's not perfect, no place is, this isn't heaven, but we need to take care of our place where God's put us. Thank you.
Thank you to both of our city council candidates, and I'm sure you'll stick around if anybody has questions for you. And so we'll close for this evening. I want to thank you all for coming, and please remember to vote on September 10th. I do have word that early voting will start as soon as they receive the ballots, so I don't know if we have a date for that. No date yet? Okay. And then also remember, if you're going to request a ballot be mailed to you, you only have until August 26th, so that's only four more days to request absentee ballot. And also remember that those ballots have to make it back to the auditor's office by September 10. So they say 8 p.m., but let's be real, it's probably 5. Okay, so just FYI, hope to see you all at the polls on September 10th. Thank you very much.